So in this video, I will teach you how you can add people as your friend inside your Facebook clone. For that, we're gonna need to create a feature called friends. So let's go inside features, and I'm gonna create a folder called friends. Inside that, we're gonna have a folder called repository, and inside that we're gonna have friend repository. As always, I'm gonna put it as immutable. So let's say immutable friend repository. And as always, it's imported from foundation.dart. So first of all, I created two final variables. These are going to be used a lot inside our method, so I'm going to define them here. So I'm going to start by creating a feature for sending a friend request. So the way we take care of sending and receiving a friend request is adding your ID inside send or receive friend request. So for example, when we send a friend request, I'm going to add my own ID to that other person's receive request, and also the other person's ID inside my own user send request. So let's do that for now. For that, I'm going to need a user ID. So let's also make it required. And also async. We're going to need a try and catch, and in case something goes wrong, we're going to return the error. Otherwise, we're just going to return null. So let's go inside Firestore, collection, users, and then I'm going to find the other person's request. So let's go to user ID, and according to user ID, we find a user document, and then I'm going to update that document. So let's go inside other person's receive request, and I'm gonna use the familiar method of field value dot array union my UID, and because it expects as a list, I'm gonna pass a list, although it only contains a single item. So what we actually did here was to go to other person's document, and inside the receive request I added my own ID, and now we need to do the opposite of this. So this time I'm gonna add other person's UID inside my document. So let's say add other person's UID inside my own send requests. So let's go to my UID. Now we're opening my own user document on Firestore, and then I'm gonna update not my receive request but send request, and add the other person's user ID. So this is all we had to do to send a friend request. Next, I want to teach you how to accept a friend request. So let's go and define that method. The template is the same, so I'm gonna write it fast. So I'm gonna call it setting friend request. So how do you accept a friend request? Imagine I've sent you a friend request. What do you have to do to accept it? So there are two things you actually to do. First of all, you have to get rid of all the requests, and secondly, you have to add the person inside your friends list. So that's gonna be simple, but it's gonna again contain two parts. First of all, add your UID inside other person's friends list, and then add other person's ID inside your own friends list. And next step is gonna be remove sent and received friend request. So this is what you basically need to do. Let's do the first thing. For that, I'm gonna go and say await firestore dot collection. Let's go to users, and then I'm gonna go inside document, and then again we are gonna go inside other person's document. So let's use user ID, and let's update. So by now you're already familiar what we are gonna do now. So let's say Firebase field names dot friends, and for that I'm gonna say field value dot array union, and then add my UID. But you have to make sure this is inside the list. Beautiful. Let's also copy it here, but this time we go inside my document, so let's say my UID, and by that we're going inside my user ID inside Firebase, and then I'm gonna add the other person's ID to my list of friends, so then the person become my friend. The last thing is to revoke our friend request, and to do that we can just do the opposite of what we did here, but I don't want to have any code duplicates, so I'm gonna create another method for that, and that method is called remove friend requests, and again you need to pass a user ID. So let's create that method. Again, the template is going to be the same. Yep, our method is defined. So as I said, the only thing we have to do is to go inside this method and just do the opposite of what we have done, because in this method we actually sent friend request. So inside remove friend request, all we need to do actually is to get rid of those friend requests, and I guess I've defined the method in the wrong place. So let's go inside our class and define it there. Now with a new firestore, I'm gonna first of all change this array union to array remove. So the first thing you do is to go inside your receive request, other person's receive request, and remove your my UID. But you also need to go to other person's send request and remove my UID, and then inside your own user, let's go to your user inside firestore. I'm gonna first of all remove the other person's UID from the send request, but I'm gonna also do it for the receive request. So now we have taken care of all the edge cases, and this method will successfully remove a friend request. So now we have defined method for sending a friend request, a method for accepting a friend request, and also a method for removing a friend request. The next method that we need to define is to remove a friend, and as you probably guessed, this is going to be exactly the opposite of adding somebody as your friend. So let's go inside that method, and that method is called accepting a friend request. Let's paste it here. I'm going to change the name to remove friend. So what this method did was to add somebody in your friend list and also add you inside the other person friend list, and we're going to do quite the opposite. And the only part we don't need is to actually remove a friend request, because at this scenario we don't have any. So let's go inside the other person's user using the user ID, and inside their friends I'm going to just say I already removed my UID, and now we're going inside my own UID and then say remove the other person. So this was all about creating my friend repository. Next I'm going to create friend providers. So now that we are done with our repository, let's also create our provider. I'm going to go inside friend and create a new folder. This is going to be called providers, because we're going to have a couple of providers. The first provider that I'm going to define is friend provider.dart. So this is going to be a simple provider. You know the formula, let's define it. So basically the only thing we do here is to return our friend repository instance so that we can provide it. This is a simple provider. We also need to create two other providers, one for getting all the friends and one for getting all the friend requests. Let's create one for getting all our friends. I'm going to call it get all friends provider.dart. So as always, this is going to be a stream provider. Let's say a stream provider, and I'll also make sure that this is an auto dispose. I'm also providing a function body. So the first thing I'm going to do is to get my UID, and then I'm going to create a subscription, and that's going to be equal to. So let's go to Firebase collection name.users, and what I'm going to do is to get my user out of that collection. So let's say where UID is equal to my UID. I'm going to get the snapshots, and then I'm going to limit it. We have to limit it here before getting the snapshots. So I'm gonna limit it to end result, and then I'm gonna get snapshots and also listen to it. So this event is gonna be called snapshot. Let's get our user out of this snapshot. So let's say final user data is equal to snapshot, because this is gonna be a document snapshot. It contains a couple of docs, and I'm gonna get the first doc. Let's also get our user out of it. So let's say user is equal to user model dot from map, and the map is user data dot data. So now that we have our user, let's also define a controller, because here we need to define a stream controller. And I'm gonna say it's gonna be stream controller, and this is of type iterable of a string, because what we are gonna return is an iterable of a string. It means a list of all our friend UIDs. And lastly, I'm gonna say controller dot stream. So at the end of this provider, I make sure that we return controller dot stream. Let's also get rid of everything when we dispose the provider. So let's say when we dispose our provider, I'm gonna say subscription should be cancelled and controller should be closed. So here I've got my user, but I'm not gonna return my user itself. What I'm gonna do is to say controller.sync.add user.friends. I'm gonna add the list of my friends to the controller sync and then return my controller. So I think this is everything we had to do for this controller. The next provider that we are gonna define is gonna be get all friends request provider, and that is gonna be exactly the same provider as this. Again, we're gonna get our user, but this time instead of returning a friend, I'm gonna return my friend requests. So let's just copy and paste everything from here, and I'm gonna define a new provider. So the job of this provider is to get all the friend requests that I receive. So I'm gonna paste everything. Here I'm gonna name it get all friend requests provider, and all the processes are gonna be the same, except for this part that we return friends, and instead of friends I'm gonna return receive request, because every user just need to see all the received requests. And this is basically all we had to do with the provider. In the next section, we're gonna start creating our UI. So let's start building our UI, and to be able to see what UI we built, I'm gonna bring in my emulator here at the side of the project. So the first screen that we are gonna build is, of course, our profile screen, because if you wanna add someone as a friend, we have to visit their profile. So let's start building. I'm gonna build this screen inside core screens. This is gonna be a consumer widget. So let's choose a select consumer and profile screen. Let's also do the imports. The first thing I'm gonna do is to take a parameter, and that's gonna be user ID. This will help us to get the right profile info for that. We also need to specify a route. Beautiful. So inside the build method, the first thing I'm gonna do is to take some parameter. The first one is gonna be my UID. And we also need to get the user info, because everything we have in this screen is based on our user info. So let's get the user info from Firebase. And we are going to be using the providers that we defined earlier. In this case, we are going to watch get user info by ID provider, and then we need to pass our ID. Beautiful. And now as you see, this user info is of type async value of type user model, so it holds in itself a user model, a complete user info, and this is an async value, meaning that we can use the when keyword to take care of all the different states. So let's just return it, and I'm gonna put a comma here to get the formatting right. And as always, we're gonna show an error screen for this case, and also a loader for the loading state. So let's take care of the data case. In this case, we get data. Let's name it user. The first thing I'm gonna return is the save area. Inside the child, we have our scaffold with the background color of white. Inside the body, let's define a padding. I don't know why, but I get some problem with the auto imports. Let's also make this page bigger. So let's say we have a default padding, and that's gonna be constants.default padding. And inside the child, we should have a column, because as you see, we have put some images on top of each other. The first widget we're gonna define is this circle avatar. So let's go inside children and say we have a circle avatar. The radius is gonna be 50, and inside the child, I'm gonna put a network image. Sorry, inside the background image, because if you put the image inside the child, this is not gonna be a round image, and it's gonna turn into rectangle. So inside the background image, we have a network image, and inside the URL, we're gonna have the user dot profile pic URL. Beautiful. And now let's put some space. I'm gonna put a size box of height 20, or 10 might do. Under that, I'm gonna put this text, so it's gonna be text. The text itself is gonna be user dot full name, and for the style, let's say we have a font weight of 400 and a font size of 21. Then we have to put some bigger space, so let's say we have a constant size box with a height of 20. And under that, we're gonna put this button. So let's build this button. I'm gonna call it build add to story button. And as you probably guessed, this is gonna be a run button. So let's create it somewhere here. So inside this button, I'm gonna just return a run button. Inside the on press, for now we have nothing. And inside the label, I'm gonna say add to story. I guess this is all we had to do. And the last section that you want to create right now is this profile info. For that, let's go up below and say build profile info. And again, I'm gonna return a column. Inside the column, I have a couple of properties, but because here we have agenda, a birthday, and also an email, let's take some parameter. I'm gonna say and inside that, we're gonna be using icon text button. We have already defined them. So the first one is gonna be gender. So the label is gonna be gender. Not inside. So the first one is gonna be gender. And for the icon, we have a condition. So if our gender is equal to male, icons.male. Otherwise, we should display icons.female. Yes, beautiful. Let's define our second icon. This one is gonna be for a birthday. So the icon is gonna be icons.cake. And for the label, I'm just gonna say birthday dot this format that we defined earlier. So let's also copy and paste this one and create our third button. The third button is gonna be our email. So inside the label, I'm gonna say just email. And for the icon, I'm just gonna say icons.email. Beautiful. So now that everything is in place, let's also put it here. I'm gonna repeat my size box and put it under that. And let's say build profile info. So inside the email, I'm gonna say user.email. inside the gender, user.gender, and inside the birthday we also say user.birthday. So beautiful. This is all we need to do for now inside our profile screen. Later we are going to change some of this info, because instead of having only add to story button, I also want to have add friend and different options to send a friend request, cancel the request, or even accept the friend request. But for now, let's just leave it like that. And I'm also gonna go inside our home screen, and inside the screens, here we put it our actual profile screen, and here I'm gonna put my UID. But if I put my UID, this is not gonna be a constant. So just to leave it constant, I'm gonna go inside my profile screen, and I'm gonna make it not required. So please let this be null. And to avoid getting an error, I'm gonna say we have a UID, and that's gonna be equal to my UID. And if my UID is null, I'm gonna say, and that's gonna be equal to user ID. And if user ID is null, I'm gonna put my UID. So this way I'm gonna use UID here. So using this method, first of all we have our user ID, and if the user does not pass our user ID, for example when we are inside this screen, and when we come using our bottom navigation bar, my UID is gonna be passed here. So this is gonna be showing my own profile. This method will also help us later when we wanna distinguish if this is our own profile screen or from another person. Let's say save. I'm also gonna run the project to see the changes. So let's run it. And while the project is being run, I'm gonna go inside the routes and define my route here. So let's say we have a new case that is gonna be profile screen dot route name. Here we don't have any parameter, and we are just gonna return profile screen, and let's also make it constant. Beautiful. So after taking a long time, our app is finally built, and it was because I recently updated my Flutter CK. So this was the first build, and it took some time to upgrade all the dependencies. But now as you see, our app is opening. Let's see the result. So it is done. Let's now go inside our profile screen, and this will show the real info of our current user. Beautiful. Everything is perfect except the fact that I've not added any space between these. So let me just go back to profile screen, not profile info, profile screen, and add some space between profile info. So between every icon, I'm just gonna put a size box of height 10. Let's hit save. And now if we go back to our profile screen, everything looks perfect. So this was all about creating our profile screen. In the next part, we are going to enable our user to send and receive friend requests. So now that profile screen is complete, let's also allow our users to open profile screen. Right now the only way to access profile screen is to come here, but I also want to enable my users to be able to go to profile screen by clicking on someone's profile. Seems like we have an error here, but I don't know what it might be. For now, I want to be able to click on this icon and navigate to profile screen. So for that purpose, let's go inside our post tile. We need the top part where we want to access our icon and also text. So let's go to post tile, and we need the post header. Here it is. We have post info tile. I'm gonna wrap everything with a gesture detector. So when we click on any of these, we go to profile screen. But I don't want if we click on this or this to go to profile screen. we only want to go to profile screen if we click on any of these two. So let's go and find exactly them. This is our circle avatar, and also this is our text. So I'm going to wrap my circle avatar with a gesture detector, and inside on tab I'm going to define my navigator. So we may also want to pass an argument, because if you go to profile screen, again, not profile info but profile screen, it requires us a user ID, and if we don't pass the user ID, it is going to navigate us to my own profile. So I guess I've messed up also in the routes, because here we need to take our parameter. So let's get our user ID, and that's going to be equal to settings.argument, and I'm going to pass it here and make sure this is not constant. Yep, that was right. So also pass our user ID, but do we have our user ID? Yes, we have it at the top. So let's say user ID, and beautiful. Let's also hard restart the app. So now if we click on this icon, we have to be navigated to profile screen. Yep, this is exactly it. So we are now navigated to profile screen, and as you see, we don't have any app bar here because we forgot to define that. So let's go back to profile screen. Inside the scaffold, I want to set a condition. Here I'm going to have an app bar, but I'm going to set a condition. So we say if the user ID that we get from user, if it is not equal to my UID, then we should have an app bar, profile screen. Otherwise, we set it to null. So if this is not my profile, we should have an app bar to be able to navigate back to the screen we were before. So let's come back and also click again on this and see the changes are not applied. So let's also hard restart again, and before that I'm going to check the condition truly. So if the user ID is not my UID, I'm going to show the profile screen, otherwise null. Let's also check this screen. So now I'm going to press hard restart. So the app is hard restarted, but because of internet connection problem, we don't see the icons. So let's go here, and again we're now seeing our app bar. So the actual problem is that CodeHQ is my account. So if I click on this, it will surely only lead to my profile screen. So for that reason I need to create one more account. But for now I'm just gonna complete the app, and we will test these features in the future. So now our users are enabled to click on any profile and open that, and because this is my profile, it is showing add to story. So this is the next feature that you want to work on. If this is your own profile, it has to show add to story. Otherwise, you have to show add friend. So let's come here and say we have built add to story button here. So I'm gonna put the condition again. I say if the user ID is equal to my UID, you then say build add to story button. Otherwise, you build another button that is saying add friend button. So let's define add friend button. For that, I'm gonna go inside my feature friends. Inside the friends we have a presentation, and inside that folder we have another folder. This is called screens. We have another folder that is saying widgets, and inside the widgets I'm gonna say add friend button dot. So I have already prepared the code, so I'm just gonna copy and paste, because this is gonna take a huge time if I write everything by hand. But I'm gonna explain everything. We have quite a lot of imports to do. So yeah, everything is done. So this is basically our add friend button. If you go to a profile that is not your friend, it displays a button that says add friend. So this button takes a couple of properties and checks a lot of conditions. So when you go inside this button, first of all it checks if you're loading, because if you press on add friend, it's going to show loading, and if you have not pressed on the button, this is going to show you a round button, but the text is going to be quite different. So for example, if you have sent a request to other person, it has to show cancel request, and if you're already friend, it's going to show you remove friend, otherwise you can add friend. But how can you even check that? So come at the top and here say, if the user contains the UID inside the receive request, so it means that I have sent a request, because here you get all information about the user. And if your UID is contained inside the user send request, so it means that you have received a request. And if your UID is inside the other user friend list, so it means you're already friend. So the logic is very simple. You have three lists. If your UID is inside any of these lists, it means that you either send a request, receive a request, or already friend. Also inside the onPress, we check different conditions before doing anything. For example, the first action that is triggered inside the onPress is loading. So when you press on the button, is loading is set to true, and then we get our provider, that is friend provider, and also user ID. Then we check if we have send request, so we remove friend request. If we are already friends, we're gonna remove friendship, and otherwise we just send a friend request. So the logic is so simple. If you cannot wrap your mind around it, just read it a couple of times and you will be good to go. So let's also import it here, and this is taking a property, so I'm going to pass my user, and as you see we have our user here. So beautiful. Now we have also defined our button for adding a friend, but to be able to test that, I'm going to create another user. So now I have created my users. Let's go and test it out. So let's come back, and we have a user called Mark Twain. Let's open his profile. And as you see, this time we not only get our back button, but we also get an option to add him as a friend. So let's add him as a friend. Nothing happened. I wonder because we had a loading mechanism that had to work. I'm gonna open that user inside another profile to see if it's working. So let me open up terminal, and inside that I'm gonna run my app on the web. I'm gonna log in with my other profile to see if everything is working or not. So I actually run the app inside the terminal, and let's close it though. And if I go and open up the app, I have opened up the code issue, and now you see the add button is disabled because we cannot send any friend request. So it means the friend request has been set to code issue. And if I come back and also go again to Mark Twain, we see that it still shows add friend. There is got to be a problem with it, but our friend request has been sent successfully. But I'm curious to know what the problem might be, because we have handled all the cases for sending a friend request. Let's go and close it. And I'm gonna go and take one last visit to a profile screen. So let's go and check it out again. Here when you come inside this screen, you say we have my UID and also the other UID, but the button that we are interested in is add friend. So let's go inside add friend button. Here we make sure that we pass the current user, and the problem that I think it has is, right now our get user info is of type future, but the way it has to actually be is of type stream, because when we perform an action it has to react at the correct time. So let's go back inside our get user info as a stream. Here we don't get in provider, and we have get user info by ID. I want to create one more stream provider. So I'm gonna get all the code from here and create a new provider for getting user info, and I'm gonna call it get user info as stream by ID provider, and the name itself is a long sentence. So let's paste all the code, and we're gonna change a part of it. Get user info as a stream by ID provider. So inside here, not only we need an auto dispose, but we also need a family. After user model, I'm gonna say we have another parameter that's gonna be of type string, and that is our user ID. So here, instead of getting the document that belongs to my user ID, I'm gonna get the document that belongs to this user ID. So I guess this is everything we actually need to do. And let's also get rid of this import. And I prefer to use shorter paths. So let's come here, and inside the profile screen, instead of using this one, I'm gonna use get user info as stream by ID provider, and let's hit save. And as we hit save, it already changed to cancel request. So if I bring my add emulator, and if I press now OK, I also want to make sure to update my other app. So let's say perform hard restart to make sure the changes are made also to other app in real time. The application is being hard restarted, and now you see that we already have sent a request. So if I cancel the request, you see the add friend option is enabled, and if I send a request from here, the add friend option is disabled. So this is all about sending and receiving friend requests. The next step is to show the list of received requests. So let's get into it. So now it's time to start building our friends screen. Let's go inside our feature. I'm gonna close all the other features. And let's go inside presentation screens. The one and only screen that we have is gonna be friends screen. So let's build it. I'm going to import all the files that we need. So here we have a scaffold. The background color is going to be white, like always. Let's import app colors and then use white color. And then we have a body. Inside the body we have a custom scroll view, but we have to first wrap it with the padding. So I'm going to define the padding first. And as always, I'm going to be using the default padding. So let's have our custom scroll view. I'm going to define slivers, and inside that we have a couple of children. The first child that we have is going to be a text. So I'm going to wrap it with a sliver to box adapter, because inside custom scroll view, everything has to become adapted to sliver. So let's define our text. And of course, I'm going to define inside child. This is going to be requests, and I'm going to put it style. Let's say text style. Font weight is bold, and font size is 28. So let's get the formatting right, and I'm going to also copy it, because we also have the list of friends. If you have seen the demo, we have both of them. We have list of our requests, we have list of our friends on top of each other. So this is how we actually define them. And between these two, we have a divider. So let's define a divider. Height is going to be 15. Thickness is 3. And color is going to be black. Under this request, I'm going to put the list of my requests. So let's say requests list, and we also need to put under friends our friends list. So let's say friends list, and because Dart doesn't recognize these two classes, we cannot define them as constants. I guess that's a problem, right? So let's go and define them. So let's define them. I'm going to start with defining request list. For that, I'm going to go inside the widgets, and let's say requests list.dart. This is going to be list of all the requests that we have. So let's define it as consumer stateful widget, and I'm going to call it request list. We're going to also import important dependencies. It takes no parameters. So the first thing we're going to do inside the build method is to get all our requests. So let's say final request list is equal to ref, and we're going to watch get all friend request provider. And as you probably guessed, this is going to be an async value. So again, we're going to return this using the when parameter. And like always, I'm going to do the error and loading part fast. And inside the data case, and we have our data. Let's first of all name it requests. The first thing I'm going to do is to return a sliver list, because we're inside a custom scroll view, so everything needs to be sliver. For that, I'm going to define sliver list dot builder, and this is exactly like list view dot builder. It doesn't have any difference. For the item count, I'm going to say request dot length, and for the item builder, I'm just going to get my context and index. Let's first of all extract our user ID out of this list, and then I'm going to return a friend request tile, or for short I'm going to name it request tile, and inside that I'm going to pass the user ID. So now we need to define our request tile. I know this is starting to get more complex, but let's just do that. I'm going to go inside the widgets and create another one. This is going to be called request tile.dart. So remember, every request is just a user ID. For that, we're going to go and get all the data related to that user ID, and hence we need a consumer widget. So let's say request tile, and I'm going to import both Flutter Riverpod and material.dart. So the first thing that you want to do inside the build method is to get all data for your user. So let's say user data is equal to ref.watch get user info as a string by ID provider, and I'm gonna pass my user ID. Let's also define that. We also need to return our user data dot when, and as always, let me handle all the cases. So now that we have handled the error and loading cases, let's also handle the data case. If we have data, Riverpod is going to give us the data. I'm going to name it user. So here the first thing we need to return is a padding, and the padding is going to be a default padding of 8 from all sides. Then we have our child widget, inside which we have a row. The main axis alignment is going to be start, and inside the children we have 2 expanded widgets, because if we go to the complete app, it's going to be 2 expanded widgets. The first one is going to contain a flex of 1, and as child it's going to have an inkwell. And inside that we have a circle avatar, like always, to show the icon of the person. The radius is going to be 40, and we have a background image that is going to be a network image, and it's user dot profile pic URL. Under that we have a size box with a height of 15. Then we put an expanded. This on the flex is going to be 3. Inside the child, define a column. The cross-axis alignment is going to be start. And inside the children property, first we have a text that's displaying the user's name. So let's say user dot full name. I'm going to give it a style. Let's put some space here. And under that I'm gonna have a row, because this row contains two options that we have for user. So when someone receives a friend request, they have two options, to accept or to decline. These are two options. Inside row, inside the children, we should have two buttons. Each button is also expanded by itself. So let's define them. First there's an expanded widget, and as the child we have a round button. I'm gonna leave the unpressed empty for now. The label is gonna be accept, and the height is gonna be 30. So I also copy it for the second button, and the label is gonna be remove or reject. We also need to put some space here, and because this is a horizontal space, I'm gonna define a weight of 10. Beautiful. So now let's go back to this screen, and I'm gonna import my request tile. Done beautifully. And for now, I just comment the friend list to be able to save this project, and let's import request list for now, and let's hit save and also hard restart. And let's also not forget to put this screen inside our tab bar. So let's go to constants, and instead of friends screen that right now is only a static text, I'm gonna put my actual friends screen. Data import system doesn't seem to work today, so I'm gonna import it manually. And now if I hit save and go back, so now let's go back inside our friends screen, and we have an error here. Let me make the debug console a little bit bigger and see why the problem has happened. So there is probably a child that is not of type sliver. Let's check it out. And that's of course the divider. I'm gonna turn it into a sliver. Let's say sliver to box adapter, and if I hit save, let's see if the problem is fixed or not. Beautiful. You see that the problem is fixed, and we have also received the friend request from Mark Twain. Let's also accept it here. But if you accept it right now, nothing probably happens because we have not defined the mechanism. Let's go back to our request tile and finish working with the objects. So the first thing I'm going to do is to go inside my Inkwell, and here inside OnTap, if we click on the friend request, you have to go to the profile screen of the user. So let's do that. So it's done beautifully. And if you now go to the friends list and also click on Mark Twain icon, we are going inside his profile, and you see we can now add him as friend because we have actually received the request. So let's go back, and we get this error again. I'm gonna do a hard restart. It is gonna fix the error. So the error is actually fixed now, and all I had to do was to go inside the request list and wrap my loader and also error screen with a sliver to box adapter. So now we can go inside here and also come back, and I'm gonna also accept my friend request. And when you click on the accept button, it should disappear, but because I have some network connection problems, it might take some long. So while it is being done, let's also start building our friends list. Let's go inside friends list and build this screen. Again, I'm gonna come back inside the widget and build something called friends list.dart. But because it has a very similar structure to request list, I'm gonna copy and paste this code inside my friend list. Let's change its name to friends list. And instead of request tile, let's return friend tile. So friend tile is gonna be a bit easier than request tile. For that, I'm just gonna copy and paste it. So let's go again inside our widgets and build something called friend, tile. I'm gonna copy and paste everything. And like always, the structure is gonna be so simple. Let's fix this import. We're gonna use get user info as a string by ID provider. And like always, the first thing we are gonna do is to get our user data. We're using the bin parameter. And again, inside the error and loading, we put error screen and also loader. In the case we have our user, we return a padding of 8 like the previous time. And again we have an ink mail. And when we click on the friend tile, we're gonna navigate to profile screen. Inside which we have a row. We have a circle avatar that is showing our profile picture with a radius of 30. It is gonna be smaller than this one. We also have a text with a font size of 18 and weight of 500. So this is all our friend tile has to do. Let's close it and go back to print tile. I am gonna import it. Save this one, close it too, and let's also close this one. And now that you see all the files are constant, so let's make it also constant. And to make the changes happen, I am gonna restart the app again. So now everything should work fine. I'm gonna go inside friends screen. But the problem here is that we also have our friends inside the request list. This is somehow strange. Let's also go back to request tile to see if I have written the right code for that. And as you see here, we have a super big bug, and that is that we have never actually implemented the logic for accepting or rejecting a request. So let's do this. I'm gonna use friend provider dot accept friend request and pass the user ID. And I'm gonna also copy the code for here. But instead of accepting it, I'm gonna just remove friend request and again pass the user ID. Let's put some comma to get the formatting right. Beautiful. And we have another bug too. Why is mark to n appearing inside our friend list while it is not? So let me do this, accept the friend request, and also do a hard restart of the app. We also had a minor issue in which I had used get all friends request provider instead of get all friends provider. I'm gonna fix it here. Let's also import it manually. Here we go, and now we're good to go. Here we also need to change all requests to friend as we have copy pasted the code. Now everything seems to be fine. Let's also organize imports. So let's hard restart the app, and now let our friends appear correctly. So this was all about this tutorial. In the next video we will learn how to add the story feature to the app. See you in the next one.